thank you all for coming. It's not often that we can do longer retreats. This one will go all the way here from Sunday all the way through Friday at 1 o'clock. So it's still not one of our longer retreats. We like to do them like 6 weeks, but they actually turn into little mini communities where you come and you immerse so deeply, you just get swept up into it. We do a festival every year for a week, and this year was 10 days, and some of you went to Ibiza, you know how that experience is. When you go there and you immerse, you can imagine for 6 weeks. Also, I have to say, we live real mystical lives. We're really mystics, so we kind of live like the Essenes did back in Jesus' day, or the apostles, or the Franciscans. Some of you know of the communities throughout the centuries, Mother Teresa, so on and so forth. So we don't live kind of what you would say a normal life on planet Earth. And basically, I came across the Course in 1986, and I was particularly drawn to lines in the Course that said, "You'll believe this Course entirely or not at all." And I think any of us who have worked with such a tool, when you dive in it, it's like you're diving down a rabbit hole. You certainly don't have an experience of thinking, okay, this is just another book and I'll complete this course in a certain amount of time. It's actually almost like a joke that is called A Course in Miracles. People have told me around the world, it's a strange name, A Course in Miracles. Because a lot of times people think of miracles as, parting the Red Sea and turning wine into water, and of course in that could be a nice party trick. Like that one with, was it Bruce Almighty, where he takes a bowl of tomato soup and he parts the tomato soup and goes, or turning water into wine and so forth. The basic tenet of A Course in Miracles, the basic core teaching is you cannot bring the truth into the illusion. You have to bring the illusion to the truth. And if you go with me, and you join with me, and really go at this, you'll start to see that you're really opening your mind into mystical experiences. I mean, really big mystical experiences that are so strong that they will transform your awareness. I just got so deep into it. I was not really interested in what anyone else was doing with it on the planet. I just knew that it was a very intimate invitation from Jesus to awaken from this dream. And so I just dove in so strong that I started having revelatory experiences, literally that were not even perceptual. I just went into the great rays 3 different times. So I pierced the veil, and so for me, when it said the world is a veil of images, it wasn't, I hope so, or sentimentally I agree with it. It was an actual experience of piercing the veil. Of the 2 the first Course in Miracles students on the planet, Helen Schuckman, who was the scribe, and Bill Thetford, only Helen was really in a state of kind of revelation readiness. You have to be at a place of readiness to pierce through the veil, and she had the famous subway experience where she pierced and had a revelatory experience. And even though Bill wasn't quite there, I think his transfer of training actually with working with the book was just amazing, and talking with Judy Scutch and Jerry and different ones, Carol Howe that knew him. So if you choose to go with us, this is more of the quality of follow me. I'm calling you out of the world stuff. This isn't your typical seminar or workshop. It's like saying that if you become God-dependent and you give yourself so over to your intuition, I mean like 100%, or the Holy Spirit, or higher power, or Atman, or whatever you want to call it, it doesn't really matter the name that you use for spirit, but if you give yourself over fully to spirit, and I mean immerse so deeply that you're willing to let go of your everyday ordinary perception of the world and your everyday ordinary perception of yourself in the world, then that's where these miraculous experiences come, not every once in a while, not like a little glimpse here or there, but they actually are quite consistent in your awareness. But you can hold on to nothing. As he says in lesson 189, you know, simply do this, be still, lay aside all the thoughts of what you are, what God is, hold on to nothing. Do not bring with you one thought the past has taught, nor one belief that you ever learned before from anything. So oftentimes too, A Course in Miracles is thought to be a tool, just one among many, many really amazing tools on the planet. Only one pathway in the universal curriculum among many, but they're all designed to take you into a mystical experience that shows you and reveals to you who you are in God, or in Source, in Spirit. And it's not like you can really run any aspects of your life. You may think you're pretty good in financial management. You may think you know how to maintain the health of the body. You may think you know something about diet. You may think you know something about energy and polarities and balance and equilibrium and all kinds of things that you've learned through religion or spirituality. And if you go deep enough, all those will get burned away too. I'll guarantee you everything that you believe right now about spirituality will just go bye-bye. And it will be like reincarnation, karma. You know, God doesn't know of karma. There's a universal law of giving and receiving, and as you sow, so shall you reap. But that's not linear. The ego made up karma. So if you believe you've done sins in the past and now you're here in the present to undo the past, that's got to be undone too. You know, you really don't have past lives, and you don't have anything that relates along to the past. That's been the whole trap of believing that you could separate from God, and that generates this belief in linear time. And so there's all these kind of systems throughout the ages that have attempted to describe the error, and we're here actually now to join in accepting the correction. So this is as deep as you want to go down the rabbit hole. It will be threatening to the ego in the sense that anything that wants to keep you in time, linear time, is part of a resistance to knowing who you are. And so when you see that you cannot bring the truth into the illusion, that's going to be the major start of undoing and popping and dissolving and retranslating all these conceptual ideas about spirituality. Most of us, I would say in the room, have kind of seen that traditional theologies didn't really last very long for us. We outgrew those traditional theologies pretty quickly. Doesn't matter what they are. It could be Gnostic or Christian or Hinduism, Buddhism, or so forth. You know, all of them point to the same source, to the same presence, but all of them have lots of aspects of linear time in them. For example, reincarnation could be a very helpful stepping stone idea. If you come from a heaven and hell theology where you burn in hell or you make it to eternal life, reincarnation is a nice step. Everyone makes it home, it's just a matter of time. But if you come into this week, you're going to begin to question the whole idea of time. That it actually would take time to be who you already are. You see, it's going to be so practical, but we're going to go so deep, we're going to actually call you out of the world. Not call you to, go live in a community or live in a cave or live in a tree somewhere or go live on a mountain. It's not so much about moving your location of the body, because there have been many of us, I'm sure some of us have even tried that. I had a lot of hermitage experiences where I was out living in trailers and houses in the woods and, with all the bugs and all this and that, and doing all the meditation for so many hours a day and taking my course book out to the woods. And there's some fun parables we can share with you to save time, so you don't have to go through all the things I went through, all the years actually, trying to come into this experience. But actually you can join me in this presence of starting to just realize that you can let go of all these thoughts and concepts, including the ones around spirituality. And it's really profound. I found too that my way was after immersing in the course for like 5 years and reading it for like 8 hours a day for the first 2.5 years, I pretty much use it like an oracle, just to pray and pop open the book and get amazing answers, as if Jesus was sitting across from me through the book. And after those 2.5 years, then I could hear Jesus directly. So it really, my work with the book changed dramatically after those first 2.5 years with it. And then going off into the woods and a lot of silent periods, that was all helpful. But actually it's been the metaphor of travel. Some of you know when you go on vacation or you take a trip, it can pull you out of your comfort zone a little bit, of your apartment or your house. You've got your routines, you've got your diet, you've got your regimens, and when you're traveling, you meet a bunch of new people, you stay at a bunch of new places, and the Spirit used that mechanism to break me out of conformity, to expose unconscious belief systems, food preferences, climate preferences, sexual preferences, location preferences, temperature preferences, all kinds of things that we become kind of settled into and cozy, what we call our everyday life and our personality self. All of them have got to get exposed, because none of them are true. None of those aspects that I just described have anything to do with reality, but we get so familiar, we get so accustomed to it. We maybe consider ourselves a morning person or a late night person, or we may consider ourselves a snorer or a deep sleeper, or heavy, strong appetites can come on. Maybe they disappear and then they come on strong like a storm. Maybe we think we're loud and obnoxious, or quiet and shy in demeanor. All these kind of attributes that we call pretty much fixed personality attributes are not fixed at all. And even the things like heartbeat, years ago they used to think there was certain things that were involuntary in the body, and they weren't under conscious control. But then the yogis, would lower their heart rate and do all kinds of things to their metabolism with their mind, just showing us that everything is mind, that everything is under the control of mind. I'll call it mind. Eckhart Tolle, different ones call it different things. Consciousness, you can pick your favorite words for it, but our thoughts and beliefs are extremely powerful, and they generate our entire perception of the world. And every perception of the world that we perceive, you could say it's entirely generated from consciousness, and it's not really apart from consciousness. So it's a subjective world. The world that you perceive, the world that you seem to see, is a direct reflection of the thoughts and beliefs in the mind. And there's no objective world outside of you. So, if there's problems with what other people think of you, fitting in with the crowd, conformity, not wanting to displease mom and dad. Some of us have had that, where we're fine with our friends, and then we turn into little children when we get around mom and dad again. Even though these bodies are no longer babies, our conditioning will turn us into a whole different person when we're around certain people. That's what we call people-pleasing. You're just like a chameleon, adapting and adjusting to people. It's the same around the boss, You might do things around your house, your partner, that you would do, but you wouldn't necessarily say and do some of the same things around the boss, because the boss somehow is connected to money, and money seems important, and it seems to bring you, it's an exchange, a medium of exchange, but if you value money, then you're not going to step on the boss's toes. Unless you're really cocky and you're really confident you can get another job in a hurry, your behavior will even change. Your thought patterns will change even around the boss. Or authority figures, police officers, judges, traffic ticket writers. They're telling me about the system here of riding the buses, how everybody's kind of on a trust system, but if you get caught, the trust system will fine you, 600 crowns or something like that. You have to start to look at, how can I live a life that's so in alignment, so God-dependent, that I don't take any thought for a care in the world. I don't take any thought for anything of this world. Not the finances, not the relationships, not the parents, not the family, not the children, not the city, not the government, not the environment. If you follow me and you go with me into this experience, it will free your mind, as Morpheus says in The Matrix. I'm trying to free your mind, he said. Do you think that that's air that you're breathing? He says, you know, that's how deep it goes. That's where he works with Neo in the training program. Do you really believe that's air that you're breathing? You see how deep it goes. That's an assumption that you're breathing air, even. Because everything is consciousness. So what we're going to do tonight is just share a little bit about some of the things that you could expect over the course of this week, starting tomorrow and perhaps even some tonight. And so you'll have a little bit of an idea of what you're coming into, although the basic premise is what I've been talking about all night. We're just going to question everything. We'll leave no assumptions, no beliefs unquestioned. We'll question absolutely, positively everything. And yet, the best part of this experiential retreat will be, it's going to be from what issues are coming up for you that will lead the retreat. Whatever you're experiencing, whatever resistances, whatever doubts, whatever fears, whatever guilt, whatever shame, whatever, even miracles, if you're on the cusp of, you feel this excitement stirring in your heart, we're going to go right with the cusp of that excitement. We're going to ride that wave of willingness and joy and excitement at the possibility of having a free mind. Not in 2 months or 2 years or 2 lifetimes or 2 decades or 2 millennium. We're going to ride the crest of the energy of what's available right now. And that's where the excitement is. It doesn't have to be a long-term thing. That's what I've discovered. It seemed in the parable of David that it took decades, but now I've discovered that's not how it has to go at all. It can be exponential. It can go exponentially fast. You do have to have a lot of willingness, and again, I mentioned the other night, you do have to be ready. But if you're ready and you're willing to just speak from your heart, ask questions, say, what about this? Well, I'm facing this, and this seems like a brick wall to me right now, or I have no clue how I would go past that, because it's so strong and wound so deeply. We'll go in, we'll try to use as many metaphors, examples, parables from our own experiences, everything. Movies, we'll use movies, we'll bring in music, we'll bring, if we have to, we'll break out and do experiential things, touch things, whatever it's going to take. Okay. Jason's ready for some touch. Lord, take me downtown. Let's look for some touch. Here we are, downtown. We're ready for it. So, I just want to offer you this big, wide, warm welcome to jump in the water with me. The water's warm. It's not that shocking, and it may be deep, but you'll do fine. Just come and splash into the pool of mind and consciousness with me, and I'm welcoming everybody. Come down the slide, the water slide, pull your hands in, get those fingernails in, don't screech, and it's a water slide. You don't have to use the fingernails screeching all the way down into the plastic. It's really warm water, and if you'll find it's very playful and fun and joyful and loving and humorous, and you really want to be in this pool. It's where you really, really want to be. Maybe your ego doesn't want to be, but you do. And I have to say more than that, you are. In my experience, you are there. So that's part of true empathy, where It's okay to bring up anything you want, ask any questions. We are completely transparent. We do not have embarrassing questions, so ask all of your questions. Ask them in as much detail as you want. We're not going to turn red-faced and shuffle around and anything like that. We're very transparent. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. So there's no odd questions or questions that are off base, out of line. And I think as we go deeper, you'll start to find that, as I was sharing right before we came, that even what seems like sensible questions in this world aren't really questions at all. It's just declarations. Most questions in this world are declarations, I am an ego. They're declarations disguised as questions. So I'm inviting the questions because if you want to believe that, you can go ahead, but it's not true. And I think just by your willingness to ask the questions, it will start to be funnier and funnier. And I think oftentimes I go into rooms and people have like a list of 25 questions they want to ask me, and I just, in the course of speaking, their list gets crossed off. We go through things so deeply that people's internal list of questions start to disappear, which is good. It takes you into the stillness faster when you start to realize that most of the questions are just declarations. They aren't really questions. Real questions are more just questioning what you believe, questioning what your perceptions are, but not questionings about the human condition, not questionings as if you're a person, because if you start with that assumption, all those personal questions are really just declarations. I'm an ego, now, can you help me with this? And I can't really. I can't help you with that kind of declaration. I can if you're just willing to, through these movies, through these discussions, if you're really willing to go, wow, what am I perceiving here? What is it that I'm holding on to and clinging to in my belief that would make me feel a little tight or a little like a clenched fist or holding on to something? So that's my little opening spiel, and I'll pass the microphone around here if anybody else wants to share.
How do you follow that? It's really an honor, actually. Thank you. And yeah, with that vein of it just being an honor, I'm Jason, by the way. Not really. I just feel like this whole week is a prayer for me to just be used, and I feel like getting in a rhythm together. Like David said, my specialty is movies, actually. Movies and clips. We have about 200 clips, 30 mini movies with lots of sections taken out to just save time, and over 1,000 movies. So based on what comes from you in terms of questions and inspirations, the movies will come through to help answer the questions, especially where the mind may be locked and not even understand identification. To see it on a screen and see how they move through it can be incredibly revealing. So that's done involuntarily, and I'm really grateful to be here, and just I feel open. I can feel a little bit like, okay, I'm ready to be pushed too. Like I want my heart to just fully expand with you. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Frances, and I am really excited to be here in this retreat, because for longer retreat, normally it's a very intimate time for us to spend together and to really look at the subtleties and really going down, in the mind. So that's something I feel very excited about. What I have been thinking, what was on my mind today is this lesson, like lesson 158. It's about, today let me experience what I give is what I receive. And it actually says, what can you give? Really, you can't give knowledge to anyone because the Creator has given it. and you can't even give experience. The only thing that you can give is vision. That's the only thing that I can give, is vision, holding my brothers as Christ. That's the only thing in this world that I can give. So in a way that this is the things that I have my heart to offer, is the vision, and I want to invite you to just come join with me and see whatever that cannot stand that vision, that cannot stand this realization that I am the Christ, and everything will be pop open. The truth is, all these intensities and fear is the fear of being the light, is the fear of resisting the function to merge with the Holy Spirit, is the fear to acknowledge that I am the light. That's the only intensity that comes up. So a lot of times people saying, I have a lot of fear of this, I have a lot of fear of that. But the truth is, people just have fear to really come down to this experience that I am the Holy Son of God, I am the Christ, I am the light of the world. And I think this is going to be a week that we really want to touch that and see that that's the only thing that's going to free us. And if there is anything else that's used as a cover-up to hold us back, then allow them to come up and allow them to be released together. I was listening to this song today. It's the theme song, the soundtrack for the movie Giver, and it's called Ordinary Human. And the lyrics is, I am just an ordinary human, a picture perfect nothing, but today I don't feel very ordinary. So this is the experience that I really want to invite everybody. We're not ordinary human. We will not feel ordinary. We are going to feel that our true identity as the light together in this week. So thank you.
Beautiful. I'm Kirsten. I don't really have a lot coming to me other than just the same, to just express my gratitude for you all being here, for us being here together. It's a really precious opportunity, and knowing there's a few days, it's the opportunity for the trust to develop and a sense of just relaxation to come, for the heart to open. And I feel like I'm used a lot by the Spirit to remind everyone of how loved they are and to share that, because I know how loved I am, and with every step I've taken to give my life over to God, I've just found myself being so supported every step of the way. And I know that we're not given more than we can handle. I know that there is this huge amount of support available for each and every one of us. It's like the Holy Spirit is this wind that just wants to come up underneath our wings, and to the extent to which we dare to lift our wings up, we can allow the wind to help us to fly. So I feel this week is an opportunity to just loosen up, invite as much support as you can handle, actually.
Yeah, I think we've talked about, Francis mentioned the fear of the light, fear of accepting yourself as the light. And it's interesting, that's from the ego's perspective, there's an enormous fear of light. And then there's another aspect to that, is loss of control. that judgment did not seem to arise until after the experience of separation. So judgment is an invention by the ego in order to bring stability into chaos. So it's really central for the ego to be in control of the world. It's almost like if you had a preschool teacher who stepped out, and while she stepped out, the preschoolers just kind of got into a wild food fight, throwing food all over on the ceiling and all over each other's faces, smearing it in all over, and the teacher goes away, and then when she comes back, she opens the door and she sees what seems to be chaos in her classroom, and she sticks her arms up and says, "Okay, stop. All the boys over here, the girls," immediately the structuring, the control coming in to handle the chaos. And this is the root of judgment, is that separation is not a natural state of mind at all. It's not how we were created. We were created free. We were created as a free being with free will and happiness and joy and love. That's our natural state. So separation is not natural at all in any way. It's like having a total, not a partial amnesia, but a total amnesia of source. A total amnesia, and it's so chaotic, it's so unnatural that control and judgment has come in with a heavy hand. It's actually seen as a survival mechanism. That's why we judge. We also were not created to learn. Spirit doesn't learn. Marianne brought up the sense of beingness, just to be. And Shakespeare said, to be or not to be, that is the question. Very profound. But this not to be involves a lot of strange things, very chaotic emotions, confusion, doubt, disorientation, and really strong control to guard against this natural state of beingness. So I would say too, when we go into this, we will have to look at this control mechanism, trying to order thoughts, trying to order the world in what seems to be for safety, when it's actually not going to bring a feeling of experience of safety at all. Judgment never brings safety. Judgment is a major defense against the truth. And the only way to transcend this sense of control is trust. Trust in the Holy Spirit and the higher self. That's the only way out. The forms can be different, it's highly individualized, but the core is we have to learn to trust. And when I say trust, I mean in this world even dependence has a very negative connotation. Whenever I say the word dependence or dependent, people shudder at that word. But it's so associated with form, being dependent on teachers and parents and gurus, partners. That's why there's such a shakiness with it, because of the association with the dependence on something in form. But I like to say that happiness comes from being God-dependent or source-dependent. And I mean totally dependent. Except you become as little children, you cannot know the kingdom of heaven. Jesus explains that in the Course to say that little children, infants, are completely dependent on their parents for everything. We know they wouldn't last. And you can see that even in nature. Without the reliance on mother and father, even in different aspects of nature, it wouldn't last. To be that dependent on the Spirit for absolutely everything, to be so open-minded, that's the last characteristic of a teacher of God. It starts with trust, and the 10th characteristic in the Course in Miracles, open-mindedness. He says perhaps the last to come in is open-mindedness, where you wake up with that blank state of mind, with that sense of wonder, with that sense of openness, so open, and you don't even know what the day will bring. You don't know how things are going to go. You open into the day without expectations. And not just for a 5-minute practice period, but actually that becomes your way of being. For example, today I came out and Jason was saying, we need to move. He had a little bit of a trapped feeling, we need to move today, and so while he was doing some initial things, cleaning this morning and so forth, Kirsten and I took a walk to pick up some milk and tea and different things, and spent most all the coins, the Danish coins that I had in my pocket at the grocery store, walking to the grocery store. He came back and Jay said, we really need to move, and so we decided we would
He said, I need to move.
He started off with, I need to move.
And we said, we'll come with you.
Yeah. We'll move with you. And so with the coins, we take our Danish coins and we're going to take a bus ride, but we have to put our coins down. We know it's like 20 krona to take the bus, so we looked down, we had 1 ticket, 2 tickets, and no, we're 8 kronas short of the amount to move together. And the bus doesn't take, credit cards or euros or anything else. So then he said, okay, Jason. So Jason called Cecilia and said, listen, we're 8 kronas short, and I need to move. to said. This is where God dependence comes in. You can't, there's nothing else. You can't go to the bus driver and say, come on, Ken, he really needs to move today. And so it evolved to Cecilia saying, well, I've had some paper money, that won't work. And she really, for about a minute, she tried to help us. And then finally, the only way that we were going to move was to go into her son's coin collection. And this brought up a little bit of guilt for Jason. He's like, oh man, if I was a little boy and I knew my mother was talking to these 3 people from far away, talking about my coin collection, he said, I said, yeah, that could scar you for life. You could be damaged for life, knowing your trusted coins. And she's like, just the silver ones, don't touch the gold. And so actually he came out and he had 8, and we were able to move. And it turned into a very miraculous day. But that's what I mean about God dependence. You just have to trust that whatever is needed for your miraculous day will be given, whatever. And there's so much conditioning, so much learning in there about providing for oneself personally, so much responsibility, so much duty, so much obligation, that we're not talking about becoming dependent on people or dependent on the government or dependent on really anything of this world. We're talking about spirit dependence, just with that joy and confidence that however the day is to unfold, whatever is needed will be there, will be provided, whatever it is. And also, not just as an experiment, but as a way of living. We live a life where we don't have possessions, but it's not about forms not having possession, it's about really looking at the belief in possession. You know, that love does not possess, and yet this projected linear world is a lot about possession. It's not so much even wanting anything specific, but it's more that belief that it's possible to possess. That it's possible to possess. There's enormous control that gets generated from that belief in possession. You were discussing and separation. It's so intertwined with that. You were talking about it's exhausting. It's exhausting. It's like you are praying and say, when will it end? That was what Sylvia wore on her pin in the Truman Show. The woman who broke onto the set to try to, help. It was a movie, Truman Show. She had, when will it end? It was like this controlled world where everybody's acting. Everybody's playing out a part and it's highly controlled. And so, that's why I think, these miracles, what they do is they really engender trust. The more we open to the miraculous, the more we open to be inspired, to be truly guided by the Spirit, we develop trust. We have a greater growing trust that all is well, that everything is working out perfectly. Without these ego control mechanisms, all is well. I mean, if you look at the world in general and you look at something like crime, for example, there's this prevailing belief that the reason we have law enforcement, the reason we have police officers, the reason we have detectives, the reason we have armies, standing armies, the reason we have all these attack and defense mechanisms on the planet, and they come up in the news on a daily basis. There's hardly a day goes by without awareness of them, is that underneath all this heavy armature and defense and control is that without all this defense, all would be chaos. That's the argument. If you don't lock criminals up, if you don't lock them up and you don't punish them, if you don't have armies and so on and so forth, the world would say, the ego would say, history has shown you're not in good shape unless you can protect yourself. And the teachings of Jesus Christ are the exact opposite, that in my defenselessness my safety lies. If someone smite you on one cheek, turn the other cheek. If someone asks for your coat, offer your cloak as well. There's no protectionism. There's no defense in the Christ. That's a state of mind that has transcended the world. It's transcended the need for defense, for attack and defense. Jesus was not courageous. Jesus was not courageous. Courage is acting, having the strength to act in the face of fear. But the only thing is that the Christ wasn't doing anything in the face of fear, because the Christ transcends fear. Jesus was not courageous. The heroes of the world, we say, are courageous, acting in the face of fear, acting in the face of an assumed emotional state of mind called fear, having the strength to act in spite of fear. And I'm saying, no, you have to reach a state of mind where you see the impossibility of fear. You will never know your own strength. You will never know your own invulnerability until you become so dependent on Spirit for everything, absolutely everything, that you completely align with that I am presence. with that presence before time was, the eternal presence. That's the only way to be fearless. Otherwise, it just turns into an act. Or sentimentally, I wish I was fearless. I hope I can drop my fears, but without that. So that goes back to what I was talking about at the beginning, that you have to become so aligned with the presence that you don't believe that you have certain aspects of life in the world that you have to handle yourself. You have to kind of go like this with all your life struggles, just kind of go, take them all. I've been arrogant to think that I could run some aspects of time and space. I've been arrogant to think that I personally have to try to control the world, control life. It's exhausting. It is absolutely exhausting. And no wonder there's a need for sleep. Yeah, that's no wonder. If that's your habit of trying to manage and control, and it's absolutely gets clearer and clearer in the life of those who are dedicated to just spirit or mysticism. I'd say even in recent years, when we have the symbol of spiritual communities and everything, still it comes up, even in spiritual community, that there's nothing more exhausting than trying to manage people, manage their lives. I was talking about Eileen Caddy, because when I visited Findhorn recently, they were thrilled that I was there. They said, "This is great, you're just like the essence of Eileen. She just came and she just sat on her toilet and she received her guidance for the whole community. For 15 years she sat on a toilet because her husband didn't want her in the bedroom, and she only had a little caravan, so she went out and sat on the toilet, on the loo, and received instructions for the entire community. Until after 15 years she told them, "I'm not doing it anymore. You're getting too dependent on me as a person. You need to hear the same guidance. It's not helpful anymore." A dependency, a horizontal dependency is starting to develop here, which is not good. They were very grateful for all that came through her. And I see that's how it's gone in my life, when I was happy to give the guidance that I received, and everything flowed and flowed and flowed and flowed. But even when you live with a group of people, you have to want that everyone hears that voice. So there's no dependency on a person speaking anything. Who wants to listen to the instructions of some person speaking? We want to hear it directly, to be so in line that our lives are involuntarily just flowing in the Spirit always. So, to me, the trust level has to go up, and the idea of not having possessions, it's not a personal thing. It's just that possession is not an idea that God creates. God isn't a possessor. God's a giver. A giver, an extender, but not a possessor. So when we try to possess, when we try to cling, when we hold on things with possession as a way of living and surviving, we're really trying to hold off the light. We're trying to deny the way reality is, the way reality works. And it's very lively. Some of you have been in partnerships. When you're in a partnership or you're in a family and this possession thing comes up, you know how sticky it gets. How many divorces, how many seeming separations, even in the world of form with partnerships come up where there's differences of opinion or belief, or there's control issues around money, or control issues around property, or control issues around children. Why would you have control issues around children without the belief in possession? Who gets to be with them? How much time? How much quality time? You see, it's a possession around time that's even there. And how sticky it gets. It turns into a war, all from this idea of possession. So we need to be convinced that it's good to give. Give, like Francis was talking about, not give of just material things, because you give but little when you give of your physical possessions. It's the attitude of giving. It's actually what she shared, vision. That's the one thing that we can share, is vision. We can share it, we can extend it, we can give it freely, and we're more aware of it by giving it. I'm talking about the vision of Christ, not a vision with the body's eyes, or anything to do with perception, but this core vision. So we have really called upon the Spirit to be with us for these days, to really go for the highest of high, to really say, I am worthy of this. I am worthy of the experience of this. It is natural for me. It is my natural life. Linear time and trying to make a living or survive in linear terms is not asking for your inheritance. It's asking for a small package. It's almost like being offered the entire kingdom and saying, I'll take the little small package, or instead of going in the door where Jesus is with wide open arms, it's going instead to attend the lecture on heaven that's being spoken about at the next door. Why do we want to hear lectures instead of walk through the experiential door? Why is Jesus there and nobody's lined up for that, and everyone's lined up for the lecture? That's what we have to be honest and just say, what am I afraid of with this experience? And when I think of losing control, what is it that I actually believe control brings me? Have I bought a bill of goods, hook, line, and sinker, that these defenses and these possessions are actually helping me? And it doesn't matter how many people are reflected in the belief, in the end, it comes down to the very intimate question in our souls. Is this protecting me? Has life insurance ever protected you? I always say life insurance is a bet that you'll die. And the only way to collect on the bet is to die. You actually have to die to win the bet. That's absurd. That's absurd. You have to take a look at these things. It's supposed to be practical, mature. How much life insurance do you have? Tens of thousands, hundreds? Is that all? That's all? For your family? $500,000, $500,000 life insurance policy? Is that all? You have to die to collect. And then they say, well, it's for the future generations. There aren't any. There really aren't any. It's a trick to believe that these bodies are really living bodies, and that you'll die and go off somewhere and they'll be living on in a real world. It's perceptual. When you forgive completely, the world disappears. It was a hallucination. It doesn't go on. You don't go off to another place, another dimension, another life, while this world goes on. In fact, when Jesus even says, when I awoke, you were with me, he's talking about eternity. Because people always come up to me and say, how could he do that? Wake up from the dream and leave me stuck in the dream. You see how it's just coming from an assumption of the me, as if the little me's real, and Jesus has abandoned this little ego me. It's not that way at all. It's a perceptual hallucination. And the only way we free ourselves from this subjective perceptual hallucination is to trust that all things are provided. And Francis was sharing the other night, maybe we can expand on this, but Francis shared at the Waldorf school that you're not really afraid of the means. You're afraid of the end. You're afraid of where this is heading. It seems like it's the means, like what's this going to cost me personally? But we had, Sina and I had a counseling call this morning, and that was exactly what you were talking about. Like, in my old age, pension, all those things, are very deeply rooted beliefs, and yet you were sharing the other night, we're not afraid of the means, we're afraid of the end.
Yeah, it's just like what Doug was saying, it's seemingly there is a fear or about exclusion, or actually every step that we're saying, this is what it is. There is a conclusion about what the upset is about. And as soon as we go deeper, we realize it is not that, it's this smallness that we're clinging onto. And what is smallness except this fear of what is the opposite, that Christ has been constantly calling us, even, we constantly use the word assignment or function as if there is a function to do in the world, but these are all steps to open our mind up, using the functions that's given in form, but really use that to give all our mind and heart to it, to see what subtleties come up, and the holding back from it, the fear of communication, the fear of being fully in it, allow the Spirit to speak through us, allow the Spirit to move through us. All these fears, that's going to be revealed through it. So in a way, just through every steps that we're guided towards, we can see that constantly this fear and intensity is basically saying, it's too much for me. This is too much for me. I would rather to hide in a little corner, and I feel secure. I feel I'm in control, because I do not know if I completely accept your function, what will be you will be merged with the Spirit. And the ego is terrified of it. It doesn't know what it will be like, because the ego will be dissolved in that light, and it will be completely out of control.
So the ego is saying, without control, without judgment, all would be chaos. And the Spirit's saying, without control and without judgment, all is love. You see how there's just two different perspectives on the letting go of control. One is saying all is love, and you'll know it for sure once you let go of the control. And the ego is saying, no, without control, without prisons, without all kinds of systems and mechanisms in place, then all will be chaos. It would say, why do we have traffic signals? Why are there traffic lights? Why are there air traffic controllers? You see, everything. Without government, all would be chaos. Without armies, all would be chaos. You can see it played out in all aspects of the cosmos. The teaching is, without control and judgment, all would be chaos. And the Spirit is trying to get our attention and saying, don't look there. We have to come in a whole different direction. And you're going to have to build confidence in this new direction. You're going to have miracles. You're going to have to, just like when someone learns how to ride a bike for the first time, drive a car, do anything in this world, we have to gently be led in. And as we keep riding that bike, we learn how to balance and pedal. We go, that moment comes, wow, I can do this, I can ride a bike. We need to be drawn toward the love and see that everything is wonderful by moving in that direction. That there's no fear. The world's not going to come crashing down. And oftentimes we get those questions, with if everyone just trusted so completely, what would happen to the world? Who would maintain the world? Kirsten was talking about that recently, about this whole assumption that the world is there to be maintained. Instead of, the world is just a reflection of our mind, and peace of mind is the goal, not maintaining the workings, the mechanisms of the world. So it's a big turn. It's really a big turn. And I feel like that's what we're all doing here together. We're here to join together in the willingness to have an experience that it's safe to let go of the control, safe to let go of the judgment. And we'll use everything that we know, every kind of mechanism or exercise or talks, everything that is available to us to go into this experience together. We're just so grateful that you're here for this, to join us in this purpose. It truly feels brand new. It's not like it's ever been done before. There's no precedent for awakening. There's really no precedent for forgiveness. We can't bring any old ideas to this. We have to be willing to have our hands wide open, to be shown, to have it revealed, to behold it.
Like I said to you, David, yesterday, it's funny how things always fit together, pieces of the puzzle, because you said something yesterday that fit in with mine, and you just said about how will it actually end, and I think a question that puzzles me very often is, in my life it seems like people are dying. Both my parents have died, and so on and so forth. But if my world is made up by me, then I speak about making an end to it. Two things keep me apart from doing it. One, that the Course says won't help you. You won't get any relief if you lay the body aside for special reasons, not for others. But the other thing is my girls, that I think I'm a mother of 3 girls, and leaving them behind, and they will miss me, is one of the crucial beliefs. So I've been thinking a lot, if I end my life, will I make an end to all of you, all my girls, everything, so they won't even be missing me? Is that what I have to trust, that it's not a question whether they will miss me or not. It's only looking at the thoughts about it. So if I really choose to make an end to it, I don't have to feel guilty about that thing, and not even to my daughters. Is that what the book says? Is that what everybody here believes? Or do you all share my fear that I will leave my children behind?
That's beautiful, because when I've gone around and around the world, I get invited to a lot of unity churches, and I always pay attention to all the denominations in different places I'm invited, because I'm always listening, and one of the things I say at these unity churches, I say, well, no one ever dies in unity. They all make their transition. They won't even use the word death. So-and-so made their transition, so I always say, where do they go? Where do they go? People say, to the other side. And I say, but this is unity. How many sides are there in unity? You know, it's like the emperor has no clothes on. Someone's got to bring this stuff up somewhere. This idea, it really stems, the missing part stems from the belief that there's like an objective world that's really there, and that when you die or when a person dies, they leave. They leave the world. They transition, they go somewhere and everything, and it's part of this belief that there's an objective world that stays behind. Not that it's a hallucination, and when you recognize it as such and forgive it, that it actually disappears because it never really was there in the first place, that you were hallucinating. So this is where, like, quantum physics even comes in, about consciousness and perception and everything that the mystics and saints have been teaching, that there's no objective world outside. In fact, Jesus says in lesson 132, an amazing thing. When you came to this world, you brought the world with you. Isn't that a fascinating idea? You brought the world with you. You didn't incarnate. You didn't come to an existing world. It's almost like, imagine you're a happy little soul flying around, you've got a little soul backpack, and you open your backpack and throw out the whole cosmos. It's starting to teach what quantum physics is saying, that there is no external world apart from your mind, the slit theory. Yeah, firing the laser, the particles, slits, particles and waves, and that everything, without exception, is a reflection of your consciousness and your belief, and you're not apart from that either. It's not like it's out there and you're in here. So that's really what the Course is about. Not only is that what it's saying, but the whole workbook is designed and intended to come to that experience of seeing that there's no inner and outer. There's no perceiver and perceived. There's no observer and observed. There's no subject and object. That those constructs are the most core belief. So we're not necessarily talking about separate people and separate objects. We're talking about a separation between the perceived and the perceiver. It's that fundamental. Yeah.
And yeah, obviously it's a deep question, and to come into the experience of it, and I'm honouring that it's almost 9 o'clock.
4 or 5 minutes.
4 or 5 minutes. But yeah, like the self-concept includes the whole world that you relate to. Like the self-concept is not just the person, it's the whole world, and so it includes everyone in it and everything in it as set up. And in my experience, even with my mother, she's also into A Course in Miracles, and we've been on the journey of undoing the mother-daughter concept, like undoing those roles completely from the mind. And the good news that I can share is that just with this approach of really going for it, really seeing just the nuances of where we would relate through the mother or the daughter with any sense of guilt, responsibility for each other, and the guilt of separation, of leaving each other, like really going into it with such prayer and attentiveness and full communication, that when we were living in Australia not too long ago, and her heart stopped, and she was taken into the doctor's office, and the doctor, she had my cell phone, so he called me to come and pick her up, and I drove her down to the hospital. And on the way down there, we just felt so much gratitude for each other. And by the time we got to the hospital, we were just laughing at the idea of death and saying, wow, this is it. In this lifetime, we've achieved it. Like, we cannot be apart. We know the Christ in each other. This love, this deep love that's been there, seemingly lifetime after lifetime. And we've played out lifetime after lifetime, losing each other. One of us dying, abandoning each other, losing the love of our life. You know, we just did it with mother and daughter, but you can do it with a soulmate. You know, it's like this whole life after life has been a story of separation from love, losing the one that we love. It's really God, you know, this love of our life, but it's projected into this world as if I could lose the ones that I love. And here, through this approach of coming so deeply into true identity and knowing who each other are, it's merged into, we can't lose each other. And by the time we got to the hospital, I just was like, wow, if it's time to lay this body aside, I just feel like we're complete. There's nothing left unsaid. And when we got down there, she had all these tests taken, and the doctors were investigating everything, and they couldn't find anything wrong with her at all. I just saw the whole thing was this setup for us to go through that experience of seeing how healed this relationship is.
It's interesting too, because when we look at the level of time and the body and the heart stopping, and that if you roll the parable back a bit, it was actually her mother Jackie that had invited me to come to New Zealand for the first time. I go down there, she's not even around. She's in the South Island, we're in the North Island. We do a gathering, and her mother keeps calling her up, come, you've got to experience this, come. Her mother introduced her to the Course in Miracles. So Kirsten learns of the Course, starts working with the Course with Jackie, which is teaching that there is no world outside of your mind. Let go of every thought, every concept that you hold of yourself. Now we've got seemingly mother and daughter working with the Course, and then Kirsten leaves the South Pacific to come join with me, and she was even quite surprised at that. It was almost like many people told her this is what's going to happen, even though she didn't know it was happening. And then through a number of visits back to New Zealand, I do remember the day when we were sitting out on the beach, looking out at the water, and Jackie, the mother, was raging at me. I introduced my daughter to the Course, but where we're going with you is letting go of everything. I'm losing my daughter because of this. I introduced her to the Course and to you, and now I'm losing my daughter. And the rage came up, which is what we talked about. Everything has to come up. All of the attachments, everything that's believed to be real, including possession. My daughter, the my was coming up. And so if you go, that's rolling the parable back. Now if you roll the parable forward from the Australian, the heart stopping, you see that she was just with us in Europe, holding gatherings in England, in Ireland, in Sweden, teaching the presence, teaching through presence. No longer a mother. You can see these beautiful parables. If you really see the full scope of them, you see that starts to give a context to how glorious this is. Being identified as a doctor, that's an important question, like what happened? What was the procedure? But when you step back at the whole context, you can see this is about letting go of everything, of all attachments, affiliations, associations, and coming into the Christ presence and letting that extend. So it's quite a beautiful parable in terms, and I know that's something that's obviously you're raising, it's important, but it's not so much just letting go of the mother concept or the daughter concept, but there's a much broader context, like Kirsten was saying, that the whole world that's perceived is part of the self-concept. It's not just the personality self that has to get dropped. It's what surrounds the personality self as well, the stars, the planets, the cosmos. It's the whole thing. And it's good to know that, because it's not dropped in pieces. It has to be seen in its entirety, and that's what you're here for.
I guess we believe that that's depending on time, on the linear timeline, that I think maybe if I die, then my girls will die later, and in 60 billion years the cosmos will die and be sucked into a black hole or something. That we're really identified with this timeline, that the whole cosmos will not collapse at once when I die. But I guess that's what you do say, it will.
When you resurrect, not so much
when you resurrect. That has nothing to do with the body dying. We're actually giving it back over. We're letting go of the identification to free our mind And it's in the letting go, like even just the working with one and letting go of that identification as a mother and daughter. It's just such a small example, but I'm letting go of that identity, and I'm letting go of holding you to that identity, and that's freeing the mind to experience the truth of a relationship that's reflective of relationship with spirit. And it's this letting go that is literally dissolving who I thought I was in the universe, even as a person. That is the undoing of time, the letting go of time. And it's like the whole thing is being dissolved into a mystical state of mind, where death is not possible. There is only self as eternal life. But this is it. We've got to give over that identity as possession. I am this. And how I think of you is possession. I am this, you are that. So it's this forgiveness. Forgiveness is truly how we let go of that. Free our mind from even the belief in death.
And the good news, I'll close with this tonight since we've reached our time, is when we talk about letting go or giving up, that's how it's described from the ego's perspective. But from wholeness, it's more just an integrating in. Like I see that I really never actually gave up my family. I actually just included everything else in with my family. I was holding everything else apart from the family, saying they're special, they're unique, they're who I am. They are part of the identity, to including everything else in. You see how it's a different angle of what's happening. To the spirit, we're just integrating, we're just accepting everything else in without exception. To the ego, it feels like it's a big letting go, like we're letting go of people. We don't really let go of people, we just include everything else in. That's how the awakening happens. It's really fun when you think of it that way. There's no sacrifice to including everything in. It's the letting go part that makes it sound like, oh, that's going to hurt. Mom! You know, it's from the perspective of letting go, that's where the pain comes in. The idea that you're actually letting go of something that you've actually had and actually owned or possessed or was part of who you really are. It's just not the case.
It's beautiful. The only heartbreak is heartbreaking wide open to be able to let it all in.
Yeah.